Hey, welcome back to another episode of Video Star '07 Garage, and we're back on the Throttle Down Kustoms 78 CJ5 build up, and I haven't got a lot build up as you can see yet, but I did get a lot of parts. And I thought I'd go through them real fast here, and if anybody's got any questions and wants to see anything up close or in depth about what I'm doing here, ask questions, subscribe, comment, and I'll be sure to get back to you. But here is the that is a Throttle Down Kustoms steering box mount. And the thing that's interesting about that, first off, is you can see how beefy that thing is. Boy, that thing's strong. And it fits perfectly. I trial fitted it. It moves the box, the steering box, forward 1 inch. If you've ever had your CJ set up yet, you'll find that the pitman arm can hit the tie rod. And if you look real close there, you can see a mark on the tie rod where the pitman arm was hitting it, and that's even after I did a flip on the upper. I did a flip on the upper tie rod to put it on the top side to give more room, and you can still see how close that stuff is. So when you hit something and it bounces up, the tie rod would hit the other tie rod, and those are some aftermarket stronger tie rods, which I would highly recommend if you haven't done so already. And you can get a new that's a power steering box, which you may not have on your CJ5, but you can get at Napa for a fairly reasonable price, but you got to have a core, or they will charge you a lot for a core charge on those. It's about $220 something just for the core charge. Okay, next up we have a MORE, which is a great company. That is a front. That is their front shackle mounts, and that is much stronger than the factory ones, which on my Jeep were welded on by a previous owner, so I needed some new shackle mounts. Down there we have the Throttle Down Kustoms pinion snubber, which I'm going to have to weld on, and we'll size that up later and figure out where that goes and all of that later. Down here is a beautiful thing. Is the MORE motor mount, what they call the bomb-proof motor mount kit, and that is a as you can see, that is pretty bomb-proof. There is your MORE logo on that. Now you can see how it's got all 6 holes, and your stock ones will only use 4 of the holes, depending on whether you got a 6-cylinder or a V8, and mine's a V8. You can see how they got the 6 holes. If you're doing the stock mounts, you'll either use the front 2 or the back 2, depending on whether you've got 6-cylinder or V8. And the holes go all the way through the frame, as you can see there. And so what I'm intending on doing, and I don't see anybody doing this, and maybe it's not necessary, I don't know, but I'm going to take some spacers, they call them spacers at the hardware store, and I'm going to widen the hole on one side here, insert the spacer inside the frame rail, weld it up here, and then grind it back off smooth. The end result is that there's going to be some support to keep the frame rail from getting pinched inward, and that's what they did over here. And that's, I believe, for your sway bar mount, which I use, and I heartily endorse using a sway bar on your Jeep. If you're not, if you have never given that a try, I would give that a try because they drive so much better. Back here we have, I'll turn the camera upside down here, a Max built fuel tank skid plate. My other fuel tank skid plate was starting to look like Swiss cheese underneath of it, because they will rust out, because I'm sure they collect a lot of water in there and hold it in mud and whatnot. You can see how shiny that thing is. It's beautiful. They do a beautiful job. There's a Max built. You can find them online there. You get you a fuel tank skid plate. That's for the 15-gallon tank. I don't see any point to that. I've read that the 20-gallon tank drops your fuel tank down considerably, and you lose more ground clearance that way, and I just can't see doing that. There's a kind of a neat thing I just painted. Keychain holder. I've also got a 63 GMC pickup truck. And finally, well, not finally, because I still got one other thing, but this is the Throttle Down Kustoms skid plate and transmission transfer case mount. And the thing that's cool about these are they incorporate the 1-inch drop, because I've got a 4.5-inch leaf spring lift and another inch in shackles there, so I've got about 5 inches of lift on this, and you've got to drop your transmission transfer case down in order to get a good enough angle on your drive shaft. And don't forget to go out and get you a custom-made drive shaft if you do a lift on your Jeep. But the neat thing also about these, you've got a removable skid plate. You see the four bolts here, and this thing's heavy, pretty heavy built. But you can remove the skid plate separate from the framework, which is different from your factory one, because your factory ones, and yeah, I guess we got enough light there. But you can see I've added spacers to get an inch drop, and that's kind of hokey, and nowhere near, if you got a lot of weight pushing up on your skid plate there, your spacers, or it's kind of a hokey setup as compared to this sucker where it's all built in. That's going to be much stronger, much better skid plate. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about the Timbren bump stops for the axles. There's one for the front, and there's one for the back. And the deal with the Timbrens, first off, they're about half the price of buying your fancy hydraulic shock type, and I realize those are really cool and all, but I'm on a budget. I don't know about you, but here is what a Timbren mount looks like, and I'll tell you where I got the idea from. I work on big trucks, everything big rigs, medium duty dump trucks and whatnot, and they use a Timbren or a Timbren type, either a copy of, same design, or actual Timbren made bump stops on these trucks, and I've never seen one fail. They're just virtually maintenance free. Well, I mean, they are just maintenance free. They have no problems ever. Now, the way that they work, and I think I'm going to build a platform that it will bounce into, but you can see how it's hollow. And so essentially it works the same as an air bump stop without all the fancy gadgetry to blow out and whatnot, and that's what makes them so reliable and trouble free. And it's made out of a material that will not rip. I've heard that some of these urethane ones will give out on you. But more on that later. And they bolt in to your frame like right about here, and because it's curved here on the TDK frame, and that's different from the stock frame where you've got a straight platform. So that's actually made for the stock one. The rear one has no problems. The rear timbering will have no problems because it's a flat mount there back in the back. But you see how they've already got you holes drilled and tapped for your bump stop, but it is a curved surface. So now using a factory bump stop would be easily modified. You could just bend those, I'm sure, but you're not going to bend this. That's way too beefy. And secondly, I'm going to take and drop it down, because I've got, again, the lift kit. I'm going to drop down a couple inches here to where it will actually do something. Because you don't want to underarch your spring. That would be a bad thing. So I did not have my thing set up properly before. You can see how much room there is between the bump stop and the axle there. You would have the spring would be reverse arched if it came up all the way to hit this. Okay. And there's your factory pinion snubber. They've got a flat spot cast into the housing for the pinion snubber to hit, and I think the main goal of that is to prevent the axle from coming up and slapping your oil pan, more so than pinion snubber like you would see on a drag race car or something like that, which has a whole different meaning, different way of looking at things. Okay, well, I'll stop babbling here for a while, and I appreciate you stopping by. If you have any questions about any of the products that I've shown, and trust me, I'm just a regular guy just buying this stuff. I'm not endorsing these or promoting these or any way or whatever. This is just stuff I'm using, and parts that I'm gathering, and more stuff to come here in the future. And I'm going to start setting up my motor mount thing like I was talking about, and I'll show you more on that as we go along. And I need to tear down more stuff on my Jeep there. I'm going to modify the roll cage, and I'm going to put on some another thing I got here. You can see the big hooker header box sitting there. I got fender well headers. Yay. Got some cool fender well headers. Going to go on this thing this time around. I did not have fender well headers before, and I'm going to do fender well headers this time around. And so that should be pretty cool. I've got something else I'll show you here. It's going to be a ways down the road yet, but I've got some Cyclone Purple Horny mufflers that bolt straight onto the collectors. Yeah, they're called Cyclone Purple Horny, and they've got a special Jeep style muffler, and you'll see why I'm doing that when you hear this thing fire up, because it is pretty amazing sounding V8 there. I've got some goodies in the V8 there, and we'll get more into that stuff too here in the future. You'll see a HEI conversion distributor that I highly recommend to anybody out there that's running an AMC engine. It should cost you a little over $100, and to convert to a much better ignition system. Okay, but here's a shot of the stock power steering box mount, which you can see is much flimsier than the Throttle Down Kustoms one. Anyway, that's all for today. Like I say, subscribe, comment, ask questions, and I'll get back to you on it. Alright. that's all for today. See ya.